Good evening and welcome. Thank you. I just want to take a moment to say thank you first for taking time out of your schedule. I know it's not easy to get away on a weeknight, but it means a lot to us that this important work means something to you. So thank you. We're going to start. If you don't know me, my name is Ann Steenwyk. I'm the head of school, and I've been very eager and excited for this evening to show you what we've been working on for a very long time, and it feels good to be to this point. I want to start with how we start all of our big decision making, and that is with the mission. Whenever we have any decisions that we need to make, we always go back to the mission, and you'll see it in every room of our school. You'll see it in the arena where we often have our big discussions, sometimes fights, and our big decisions. And I want to just call attention to it, the three parts of it, which is really important as we look and frame up what we're going to be talking about this evening. The first part is in partnership with the Christian community. You are here tonight. You are our partners, and we're really grateful that you're here to spend time with us to learn more about the work. We are, of course, about the work of providing Christian education excellently. And again, that speaks to what we're going to be talking about tonight. How can we be even more excellent in how we promote and do Christian education, integrating Christian worldview? And then the last part, how are we preparing our students' hearts and minds for service in God's world? That last part has everything to do with our mission. We are preparing our students to impact the world near and far for Jesus Christ. And every decision we make matters in how we do that and how we can have that executed. I had a student just last week who graduated just in May come back and tell me specific ways we helped prepare that student to impact the world for Christ. And that is the real work. We're not just getting them out in the world to do their own thing. They know what they need to do. And I want you to have that context as we look at the plans this evening. I also want to share with you the graduate profile. This work that we've been doing starts already at the preschool level. You will probably see in the hallways and in the classrooms, if you look at the student work, everything goes back to what our students' roles are in God's story. And we talk about that in the framework of scholarship, discipleship, and citizenship. So if we look at scholarship, we are training our kids to be beauty creators, image reflectors, order discoverers, and truth promoters. And we want them to do that as they're impacting the world for Christ. In discipleship, our relationship with the Lord, we are not only fostering that, but we're also helping our students to disciple others. And how are we doing that? We're in worship. We're helping them to, especially now, be able to discern what an idol is in their lives. We're teaching them how to enjoy creation, God's creation, and also how to apply scripture in everything that they do. And then in the area of citizenship, this is where we're preparing the hearts and minds. What are they going to do? They're going to fulfill these roles in the world. They're going to respond to their calling. They're going to be creation keepers, and they're going to advocate for justice. They're going to work, and they're going to build community. We've been focusing on that all month. And they're going to be in the neighborhoods. On Friday, we were in the neighborhoods. Our neighbors set out their lawn chairs and watched us as if we were some kind of parade. But we were in our neighborhood, and some of our students had conversations with our neighbors. We want to show them the love of Christ. This is a picture of our senior class that just graduated in May. And when we look at the future, When this is all said and done, when we've reached our capacity, we will be producing 60 graduates every year, and they will be impacting the world for Christ. How did we get here? I think this could probably easily be changed to, how did God get us here? When I look at the history, the last few years, 2015 was actually the year SES and SCCHS merged. Interestingly, interesting hearing TJ talk about when his kids were in high school. 2015 was when our oldest graduated, and SCS was in a very different context at that time. And when I look at that date, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, and yet here we are. We are in a very different context than we were in 2015. That merger helped to create a stronger organization. In 2018, the vote was to move the campus, the merged campus, to this location. And then in 2019, we retired $750,000 for operating debt. That was a really big deal. Our school had quite a bit of debt prior to that time around the merger. And by the time it was, when we were starting to talk about, wow, what are we going to do next? The first thing the board wanted to do was get rid of the operating debt. And John Lormus worked really hard to make that happen, and we're happy to say that it's gone. In 2021, the project for the elementary school, where we're actually standing right now, happened, and that was a $6.8 million building project, 40,000 square feet. Fortunately, the facilities planning committee and the board had the foresight at that time to build the shell of the middle school, knowing that eventually the growth would come up. We had no idea then, but that actually saved us more than $60K because of what happened with COVID and all the materials, and that was quite a big savings, because interestingly, it didn't take us 5 years to get to that project in the middle school. We had to have it within a year. So in 2022, the middle school expansion happened. That was a $1 million project. At that time, we knew that we would be needing one more classroom eventually, and that's where we're at right now. But as you can see, a lot happened in that short amount of time, and we're happy that God has been in all of those details. This morning, Joel Navis led our faculty devotions, and the devotions were based on Numbers 27, 12 to 23, and the devotions really focused on God's sovereignty and all of the minute details that He is in every single one of them. When I look at this, it's evident that God's provision again reigns. I want to share a little bit about the behind-the-scenes work that our Board of Trustees did. They're always thinking strategy and thinking ahead. And I've been just so impressed working with this board in their constant push and accountability in what we need for the future. And as we were talking about growth, one of the questions came up, well, when, how big do we get? How small do we stay? All of that. The board actually met an entire day to talk about these really important decisions, and they decided at that time in 2021 that the school would stay at a 2-class capacity. So as you know, you can see right now we're in the upper elementary pods. There's two sections of 5th grade. There's one classroom there, one classroom there. All the way up, the plan is to have 2 sections per grade level. They also, and rightfully so, we are a school, really wanted to make sure that academic programming stays excellent and that we're ahead of the game and that we're competitive in terms of academic programming. And then in 2022, we really wanted to fortify our relationship with OCS, Oosburg Christian School, and continue our assuring that relationship and that our students from there would have a place at our school. So at that time, the board decided to make sure every OCS graduate who would come here would have a place here. Because there's some concern, obviously, that with the growth coming up, wow, will there be room for Oosburg Christian students? We wanted to assure that there was absolutely room for Oosburg Christian students to come to this school. That was why the school was founded in 1969. It was a partnership with Oosburg Christian students, and we wanted to make sure that that legacy was maintained. Additionally, the board voted to offer a tuition discount for students who have share both Oosburg Christian School and the high school. So that with those strategies, our growth capacity then becomes 668 students all in. And then you can see the numbers there for how it's broken down, elementary and high school. I want to share a little bit about who the behind the scenes. There's quite a few people that have been involved in these plans and these decisions and prayer. The Board of Trustees, this is the list of Board of Trustees. These are the newest ones as of this year. There are some other board members that might be in this room that were here in previous years that were helping also with some of these plans and decision making. The Facility Planning Committee includes these members right here, as well as our administration team also sits on that committee as well to provide input from the school boots on the ground. Our Finance Committee has done hours and hours of spreadsheets and risk models. John Rosel is probably the spreadsheet king. I've never seen anything like it in terms of risk models, and he's really helped in making really educated decisions, and we're thankful for that. And then our administration team. This is a picture of our school. This is our whole school this year. This is the first week of school. It's pretty exciting to see this picture. When you think about all of these students impacting the world for Jesus Christ, I mean, what an impact that will be. And so when we think about, our next steps in the school, one of the things we talk about with our donors as we have these meetings is the importance of protecting and elevating our mission. Protection is really important right now, and we believe our mission is critical in not only the time that we're in, but also in our community. We want to see as many students as possible in Sheboygan County be able to have Christian education. And then ultimately, we want to prepare our students for what's next. It's not just, we know that a lot of the, what students will be doing when they graduate from here, these jobs aren't even, right now, they're not even a thing. So many of our students are preparing for jobs that don't even exist, which is kind of crazy to think about, but that's what we're preparing them for. So we want to talk a little bit about the master plan. You'll hear two critical pieces tonight. You'll hear about the master plan. There will be a little bit about that. And then you'll hear much more about phase 3, which is the focus of our presentation this evening. Why the master plan? Ultimately, it's all about stewardship. We have been put in the Board of Trustees, administration, facilities planning. The finance team has been put in these positions to be good stewards of what God has given us. And what we plan to do with this is to protect and elevate our mission, which you just talked about. We're trying to think way ahead. You'll notice if you saw the boards coming in, there's 9 phases of this master plan, which seems like a lot, but we're thinking well into the future. We can't just think about tomorrow because it's going to be different by the time we wake up. And then we're going to be aligning it with a strategic plan, which I shared earlier about the 2 section classes. And obviously we want to avoid redundancy and waste. And we have made mistakes along the way in terms of decisions that we've made that we've had to like, oh, we wish we would have done that way, it would have been a little bit more resourceful. But we're trying to always think ahead and plan ahead. So what we're going to talk about tonight are three main parts of the master plan highlights. The first is capable and competitive building and grounds. Capable is what we believe we need to educate our students excellently. And then competitive is where we want to, again, do things excellently. It also supports our board strategic vision, which is a two-track school and OCS partnership. We're going to talk about a phased approach, as I mentioned, and we're going to talk about a little bit about enrollment, what it looks like today and what it'll look like several years from now, so you have some idea of where we're going. I'll start with capable and competitive. When we look at the big picture, these are things we believe are really important for the next phase. I'll talk just briefly about these parts. We need additional middle school and high school classrooms, and that simply has to do with numbers and where we're at. We right now have one band and choir room that shares for both middle school, some elementary, upper elementary, and high school for all the music programs. And I just want to share, this is something to praise God about. I want to just share some of these numbers. In 2019, the high school band had 13 members, and currently it has 48. In 2019, the high school jazz band had 0 members, and currently it has 10. In 2019, 5 through 8 band had 31 members, and currently it has 53. In 5th through 8th grade orchestra in 2019, there was 0, and currently we have 30 students in orchestra. In 2019, the high school choir had 33 members, and currently it has 47 members. And now the high school audition chamber choir, which never existed before, has 21 members. The middle school choir in 2019 had 44 members, and currently it has 105 members, which is just wonderful to see the growth and the amount of worship that happens through music here. I have a variety of projections, and I can share those a little bit later, but we're projecting needing space for 65 in band, 40 for orchestra, and 60 for high school combined choir. So if you look at that, we definitely need choir, band, and orchestra space. Our cafeteria right now, we have 4 different lunches. And if you have served in the elementary lunches, you know that it's quite loud and chaotic. It's very little space for a lot of little bodies. So we would like to expand the cafeteria. The commercial kitchen, this year we have a dishwasher for the first time. Deb is probably surprised by that. It's we definitely have a very small kitchen, very small space for that many students. Student commons space for gathering and socializing. Office space. Currently, all of us in the office share an office with one other person. So we have two people per office. Dedicated worship space. This is a really important one. Our chapels continue to expand. Our student-led worship continues to expand. It's beautiful, but we're always fighting over space, and that continues to be an issue. Increased parking. I think we would all agree that our parking currently is not capable. Parking is a huge priority for us, and we're looking forward to expanding that. Athletic facilities is in the long-range plan. Middle school locker rooms. Dedicated middle and high school art. Right now they have shared art space, which sometimes causes scheduling issues. STEM and vocational technology spaces, these are around the board's strategic vision around increasing STEM and preparing our students for more of those fields upon graduation. And then special education and life skills. This year, we're excited that we have 62 special education students, representing about 11% of our population, which is right where we want to be. We're excited about that, but it also means that we could use some identified space to serve those students. Looking at a phased approach, that's the pie in the sky. That is like everything that we would like for that 600 some number student. This is the master site plan. There's also a plan on the poster there. This includes all 9 phases, including the site. And I'll just try to highlight just a few things so you know what the phases are. This pinkish area and the parking here are part of phase 3, which we're going to be talking about tonight, this whole area. Phase 4 would be a chapel worship space here. Phase 5 is increasing high school classrooms and science. Phase 6 is vocational STEM technology space. Phase 7 is outbuilding, and the outbuilding includes meeting space, weight room, concessions. And then phase 8 would include another field house, gym space, hot commodity. You have no idea how many issues we have over gym space. And also includes parking. And then phase 9 is a consideration of an early childhood center so that we can have specific space for little bodies. If you look here, you'll notice, like, that doesn't look like all of our land. Part of our strategic planning is around acquiring land from Alliant Energy. Alliant Energy is going to be completely going to ground zero, out, no more trains by 2025. We're pretty excited about the no train part. And with that, we are at the table with Alliant and the developers to possibly acquire at least 10 acres of land that would help with our building projects. So those talks continue. We do not have a yes yet, but we're hoping to in the future. This is phase 3, 4, and 5 and 6 of the building part. And you'll notice again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you'll notice the different phases. Excuse me. Phase 3. This is the area that we would like to talk about most tonight. If you notice, currently, the building goes here. So this green phase right here will be new. The blue is renovated, and this is the lower level of this phase here. So 6 classrooms, band and choir, middle school lockers and expanded middle school bathrooms, expanded cafeteria, and then this is the lower level there. So that's what we're looking at for phase 3. So you can see we would be building to the south, kind of like toward the JV soccer fields, but not over the JV soccer fields. There's more land back there than you'd believe. It's quite something. And it would be 2 levels. So this part would be 2 levels. This is the bottom level. I'd like to show you a few renderings. This is some few artist renderings from the architects for the band and orchestra, choir. If you notice, actually, I want to just point this out. If you notice on the plans, they were in the middle, and you're kind of like, well, there's no light. The architects actually did a great job. They were able to build in some high-level lights there so that there will be some lighting in band and choir. This is the kitchen, cafeteria space, a high school classroom. This is the other version, same classroom, but looking out. So you can see how it looks to the south, to the green space. Was there a question about that? No.
That looks like Joel in the back.
Yeah, there it is, Joel, there you are. We can look some more at these if you have more questions, but I'd like to right now turn it over to Rudy to talk a little bit about enrollment today and tomorrow.
Thanks, Sam. Good segue with the man with the insane head of hair, and now you get me. So, and gave a little bit of the history of really God's journey for our school community, and I wanted to share a little bit from my neck of the woods as Director of Marketing and Enrollment, and just brag on what God has done here. So I've been physically here since 2020. We moved in the middle of the pandemic. That was fun. But I was working a little bit with the team here remotely since 2019. And just as Ann was talking, I was inspired to say, okay, what was our enrollment back then? What was our enrollment in 2019? And we started the school year with 269 kids in 2019. So just like you said, Ann, 2015 doesn't seem like that long ago. 2019 really doesn't seem like that long ago. So we had 269 students from grades preschool through grade 12. Again, thanks to God's provision, we started this school year with 547 students. So we've more than doubled in size since 2019. Here's our current enrollment. This is, I said 547, that was true. We're now up to 548. We just had an 8th grader start this morning. So this is up to the minute enrollment stats for you. Current enrollment, break it down by program within the school. We have 56 preschoolers. We have 238 elementary kids. We have 106 middle schoolers. We have 148 high schoolers for a total of 548. As Ann has mentioned several times in this presentation, the board's vision is for a 2-section school. So you might ask yourself, what does a 2-section school actually look like? Well, we've crunched those numbers. So a full preschool, a totally full 3K and 4K would have 68 kids. A totally full elementary school would have 240 kids. A totally full middle school would have 120 kids. And a totally full high school would have 240 kids. So that's why when someone says, what's your growth capacity, we're able to be really, really specific and say, we're going to grow into a school of 668 students, Lord willing. Some of you are already way ahead of me, and I see you crunching the numbers already, but I'm a little slower on the uptick. So I actually did this for you, so you don't have to do the math. But number of available seats, we've got 12 available seats currently in our preschool. Elementary school, we've got room for 2 more kids, so if you know a set of twins somewhere, that'd be really helpful. Middle school, we've got room for 14. High school, we've got room for 92. And that means we have room currently for 120 more students than we have currently in our school. One thing I'd like to draw your attention to is these numbers in particular, the middle and high school numbers. And you might say to yourself, well, 120, well, that's half of 240. And middle school is 3 grades and high school is 4. How are you figuring that out? Well, this connects directly to, as Ann mentioned earlier, our partnership with Whisper Christian School. So I'm a simple man, so some simple numbers for you would be, let's consider a full 8th grade every year, 2 sections of 20 kids. So we graduate out to 40 kids on a given year. And we have good conversation with our friends to the south at OCS and talk about, well, what would it look like to have somewhere in the ballpark of 15 to 20 of their graduates on a given year come here. We, of course, aren't assuming 100% retention, either from our own 8th grade, even though we have had 100% retention for the last 4 years. We're not counting on that. So all of that puts together a freshman class each year of 60 students. So that's the goal, and then you do 60 students times 4, 60 times 4, we get a high school of 240 students. So that's where we're headed. So that means a full 2-track school has 120 students more than we currently have. It also means that 88% of all of our enrollment growth will take place in the middle and high school in the coming years. So This community has experienced, as I said, just loads and loads of growth, which we are very thankful for. It's actually been, it's produced some nice problems of how do we handle wait pools and wait lists versus wait pools. And honestly, the worst part of my job is when we don't have room for someone that would be a great mission fit. That always hurts. But I really appreciate and respect the board's perspective of, let's see if a fully run two-track school with an OCS partnership is a sustainable model. Let's figure that out, let's run that, and then maybe at some point in the future we revisit this whole capacity thing. But for now, let's actually build, let's actually complete what we set out to do with this two-track school. So we're looking to continue that growth, and as we look again at the enrollment numbers in both our current elementary and middle school and Oostburg Christians. Of course, those are not the only areas we draw students from. We also draw students from all of the Lutheran and Catholic schools in the area, public schools in the area. Homeschool is becoming an increasingly popular place we draw students from for the 9th grade as well. So that's how we're going to build a school of 668 students. How much will this cost, and what are we getting? Now we enter the money time, and now I leave. So here comes John Wormus to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you, and as I would say, thanks for being here tonight. You know, as before we get into it too, is being around here for the last handful of years, it really is amazing to see what God has done, and I think it's in every aspect of our school, right? The student growth, the financial stability, the culture, the staff, like at every level, you're seeing what God is doing in this building and around it. And so, you know, we were prepping for today, and, you know, sometimes you get a little nervous when we're going to do a listening session, we're going to talk to people, and despite popular belief, I don't like speaking in front of groups, but, you know, we ended up like, this is really joyful, like how lucky we are to be in this position, and how lucky we are and fortunate to be living and seeing God's work here in hand. So, as Rudy mentioned, you know, now we need to get to how much will this thing cost us and what are we getting? And as we talked about, there's a team behind what I'm about to go through and things along those lines. It's not, you know, something that we just look at willy-nilly. We have a large group of people on that. I'm never good with these clickers, so bear with me if we start going backwards. You're going to get a lot of repeats. There we go. So phase 3 expense, right, so not the total master plan, is currently bidded at $11 million. Now, keep in mind, we are in an early stage of this. So you can see that, and that's why we're having these sessions and talking to folks about it earlier than later, i.e., you know, shovels in the ground and things like that. So the $11 million is what the phase 3 expense would be. Currently, that carries a 20% contingency. Now, before I started working here, I wasn't too sure what that meant. But through our first initial phases, a contingency is a helpful way to budget and say it could be over, it could be under. We're going to give you some padding because we're not fully in the design phase. So the blueprints, if you will, that Ann was showing you are still rather conceptual. And I was talking to someone, you know, there before, is that, you know, we have an idea of what we're looking at, but as you start getting closer and closer to construction, the contingency hopefully continues to go down as you get more detailed about it. For reference, phase 1 and phase 2, and we do need to apologize because we've caused a lot of different phases when we were doing this, but for reference, phase 1 would be these 2 pods during one of them, and the other pod would be the other part of phase 1, and then phase 2 would be the middle school. And so when all is said and done, in phase 1 we ended up with a 5% contingency, and with phase 2 we were slightly under 5% contingency, which is the work of, you know, Eric Oddie and the steering committee really staying on task and going through that. So that's where we're at today with the budget, or with the expense for our phase 3. So what does it give? What physical space does that buy us, right? So it would add 6 high school classrooms, right? That upper and lower, it's going to add 6 high school classrooms for us. We gained that additional middle school that we do need, so that we can continue our 2-track system throughout the middle school. Updated cafeteria, as Ann had spoken through, so that's included here, which is much needed. Commercial grade kitchen. I've helped out with hot lunch from time to time, as some of you in this room. We have a very wonderful hot lunch program that is working on tools 20, 30 years behind what other hot lunch programs are. So commercial grade kitchen will be helpful. And for those of you that are at the One Walk as well, right, we continue to do larger community events, and this would help feed us into that. 2 additional special ed resource rooms. So as Ann mentioned, with Bryce's growing program, we need more space for that. So this gets us 2 special ed resource rooms that we would utilize. Music program, dedicated band, choir, and orchestra. This is a need today, and it's a need that's going to continue to grow. And we want to address that. We see a lot of growth and a lot of requests for this from our younger students as they continue to go through our buildings here. Renovated high school locker rooms. So again, this is something that has not been touched since before I graduated here, and I'm not as young as I'd like to pretend I am anymore. But these locker rooms definitely need a makeover, and that would be part of this, to renovate them for our high schoolers. And middle school locker rooms as well, which is a much needed thing for more of the separation of the schools within the schools, right? Less overlap spaces help us in many, many ways. And the additional parking also is a benefit as much as people, it was a nice day on Friday for the One Walk, so people weren't, and I literally was shuttling people back and forth from Bethany, but it started raining at the end, and I think people would have been a little more testy about that. So additional parking is all included in this 11 million. But there's another side to this, right? So what are the benefits of that, right? A classroom is great, and we can educate students in there, and we can, grow with our cafeterias and so on and so forth. But there's other benefits that are attached to this that we want to talk about, right? That's tough to just put a dollar to. I could make it up, but I think it's important benefits to speak why now and what our plan is and why we want to do this. For me, one of the most is retention and recruitment of teachers. All right, so we can have the best building out there, but unless we fill it with strong Christian teachers, it's going to lose its way, right? So retention and recruitment of teachers, right? Are we providing them the space to be able to teach at a high level? Are we able to recruit teachers from other areas of the country to come and teach here, right? Are we able to recruit the new grad or the 10-year veteran to come and teach here with our competitive spaces? So that's a big one for us, is our facilities lining up with our faculty and staff. School-wide scheduling. This is something that I've heard is a problem. I don't do this at all, but I know that John, Sierra, Bryce, and Ann spend hours upon hours trying to schedule our spaces. We had an interesting thing. Rudy Ann and I had some donors we were walking through a couple weeks ago, and these donors are active in other schools as well. But they gave us a really good compliment, is they said every room that we walk by, there's students in learning. There's something happening here, right? Whereas they mentioned some other schools throughout the country that they've been in and so on, and they see a lot of empty spaces, right? But we're using every space that we have. So the additional space allows us with the school-wide scheduling. And kind of aligned with that is student life. What's happening with our student life here? The common spaces, better passing periods, not having to have 4 different lunch periods. So we can really broaden and impact our students with this as well. Another big one for me too is future infrastructure savings. There's a lot that goes into the infrastructure of what we want to do in those additional phases. And again, I don't want to scare you with these 9 phases. It's not like we're looking to do one every year, right? We'll do it as fast as God speaks to our community to help us do this. But the future infrastructure in this phase is critical, right? We're going to expand the parking lot. A lot of earth needs to be moved for us to do this, which allows for easier access for those additional phases. So we're really laying the groundwork in this. And again, we just have kind of, TIF came off a large building project, but I think what you're seeing is some once-in-a-generation movement here that we want to make sure that we're meeting. Increased student safety, always a major concern here. A lot of the areas that are getting redone are the older parts of the building that are harder to maintain from a safety standpoint. Doors, different passing periods, entrance points, right? A lot of our soft target stuff, if you will, is some of the aged areas of the building. So this would allow that reno and the additions as well. Flexible learning environments. Again, not all spaces created equal. So what we want to do is make sure that, we have a space that can be dedicated for science and STEM, but if we need it to be used to teach apologetics, we'll do that as well, and have done that. So we want to have flexible learning environment. and more high school specific spaces, right? As Rudy mentioned, 88% of that growth is coming in that middle and high school space. So we really need to address that, right? Which has been the plan as both these students progress and as our growth happens, they need that space to be high schoolers and enjoy their time here as well. So how are we going to pay for this? Is the next question. It's always a good one. So ultimately, with the expense, this is an overview of the plan that the finance team had been tasked with and put to work with. Again, we ran a couple of different risk models, which I'm happy to speak to afterwards, and we also run about a 5-year budget projection, right, year-over-year budget projection. So the first thing is what we're doing is going to look to increase our development by $2.5 million over the next 2 years. So we'd like to raise at a minimum $2.5 million. And when we start talking about how we're going to pay for this, I want to really make a key point to the community here. We are going to go and try to raise as much money as we can, right? I will, and God has continuously blessed us, right? So $2.5 million is not our goal of like, if we hit this, we're done. That's not it at all. This is our need, if you will, or our release valve in order to make sure we hit all our other areas. So, you know, again, as fast as God moves in the community to allow us to raise these funds, is how we're going to move, and 2.5 is sort of our first benchmark. Increased partnerships. So this one's one I'm very interested in. When we were doing these first 2 pods, a lot of this information is we're building classrooms, which is wonderful, and you can look around and I encourage you to come sometime if you haven't and see it in work. But a lot of the additional spaces we're doing lend themselves to corporate sponsorships. What does a partnership with Bemis look like? With Kohler, a lot of our graduates end up working there, and how can we use our space for VOTEC and other educational spaces like that? They play better with a, more of the business side of it than a 5th grade classroom, right? There's a bit more buy-in there. And then operating surplus. So over the course of the summer, 2 interesting things happened to our organization. The first one is our high school enrollment grew larger than we expected, right? Much thanks to Rudy's team, the teachers, and the attraction of our school was higher. So we saw a larger high school enrollment growth. And then a bigger side of this too was the increased Wisconsin Parental Choice program reimbursement. So over the course of the summer with the budget, Governor Tony Evers and Devin Lenahue decided to make a substantial increase in what each student is allotted in their choice allotment, which has, and again, we're still working through the updated budget, but at a bare minimum looking at about $500,000 per year in a budget surplus. So all of that combined is how we look to plan and map that out. And again, it's been mapped out in terms of cash flow, monthly payments, projected loan payment, and so on and so forth is how we've looked into that. And again, as we get through that, happy to answer some more questions at the end. So what does that mean on November 9th, right? So what is happening on November 9th? We have an association meeting that we called, and so this is part of it with these information sessions. And so ultimately, this plays a little bit more into the structure of how we're going to structure, or the structure of how we're looking to unfold this phase. So on the 9th, what we will do is we're going to proceed or ask for affirmation to proceed with the master plan approach. And just one note that I'll make on the master plan, what I like about this a lot is it's really reverse engineering, right? Is instead of being reactive every other year, is what does the school look like? Maybe it's for my kids, right? But let's set a plan and then work towards it. Is it going to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Really, only God knows that, and I'm excited to see where that goes. But this gives us the path to do it so that we're not thinking, oh, we should have put a classroom there, or, that would have been a good place for a gym. We have that laid out and the groundwork's laid. So with the master plan phase approach, with a loan amount not to exceed $8.5 million, and on that note, that's based off the $11 million if it costs that much. There's a lot of room there with a 20% contingency in fundraising, right? So that is, again, a range of really what we're looking at this point, and it's tough to nail that down specifically. So all of our projections have been very on the higher end of what this could cost us. Prior to groundbreaking, we need to establish a clear path of having $2.5 million in cash, right? So what's our path to do that? And that's something that Ann, myself, and Rudy will work tirelessly at. as we get to that time. So we have, again, cash on hand in order to start that process. And the other thing is we do have the ability, again, as God provides, that we could do future phases, right? So depending on how the generosity of our community is, depending on our enrollment, depending on different surpluses and how the financials work out, there is a scenario where we can develop more at the start. But again, we do not want to exceed bank debt of $8.5 million in this phase. So I know it's a lot, and there's a lot that goes into that, but I'll give it back to Ann for why now.
We often ask ourselves, what's the difference if we do it now versus tomorrow or 5 years from now? And as we talk about that, we always go back to our mission. What are we trying to accomplish here? And we believe, looking not only at the history, it's so interesting when I think back to, before school started, I went through a bunch of archives of the school. I was trying to create this trivia game for our teachers because I wanted them to learn the history over the last 125 years. And it was phenomenal to just read through all of the detail of how this all got started. Crazy, crazy stories. I can share some of them with you later. But what was interesting to me was that each decision that was made, when I looked at even some of the board minutes that were translated from Dutch into English, they were asking the same questions. Why should we sell a cow in order to pay for our teachers now versus telling them we'll pay them later? Or why should we, give a raise to teachers more than $300 a year? That's where they started. And each time it was clear that God was leading them in a direction regarding elevating and protecting the mission of what they were trying to accomplish. Even in 1969, when the high school started, they started with, it was one of those situations that I said, if we get 20 students who can come to our school, then we'll start the school. Well, they didn't get the 20. They went door to door to door, didn't get the 20, but the board still said, we got to do it. It's our mission, we got to do it. We, seeing God's faithfulness in that, and looking at what the next generation will look like for our students. Some of you have preschoolers, 4Kers, and when I think about what they're going to need years and years from now to really impact the world for Christ, they're going to need more than what our high school has right now. They are going to need other spaces. And then the last thing really has to be about Christian education is more important now than it ever has been. I don't need to tell you that. You are seeing, you are reading, you are in the community. Our students are learning the Word of God. They are reciting it, they are singing it, and they are living it. And we need to continually provide spaces where they can grow in confidence in that, so that they can go out into the world and truly make a difference in a very secular world. Right now we have some momentum. We did not have momentum in 2015 when my oldest graduated. I'll tell you that. There was no momentum. And right now we have a really great community who is really trying hard to get engaged. We believe that we want to finish the work that was started. The board strategically said we want a 2-track school. We cannot have a 2-track school without space for those 2 tracks by the time we get to middle school and high school. And that's going to be the case in 2025. We're going to be 1 classroom short for our middle school, and we need to have spaces for that. I really don't want to have to put them in a science lab, which we might have to, or a bathroom, we'll see. This, I think, is just a really powerful picture. This was the class of 2022, 15 students. They're doing great things. This is our freshman class. This class is 48 students this year. And you can definitely see a difference. Last year's graduating class was around 25, I believe. This one was the year before, and then of course we were projecting upwards between 50 and 60 for next year. So the momentum continues. And now that's it. It's time for questions. I know there's probably many questions. I'm going to invite TJ and Rudy and John up here because I'm sure not all the questions I'll be able to answer. And also in the room, we have the esteemed Eric Oddie. Eric has been our captain of the Facilities Planning Committee since well before we started the elementary project. He's the brains behind all the beautiful plans, and he's also the brains behind don't miss anything, don't screw it up. And that's why we are trying to plan, years and years down the road so that we don't disappoint Eric. So at this time, we are happy to take questions. And I'll probably give you the mic so that everybody can hear. If you could introduce yourself and say what your daughter's name is.
I'm Anna Moore, and my daughter is in kindergarten. I also have another little one that will be joining in a couple of years. Anyway, my question is, does it affect tuition costs?
Yeah, you were looking at me right away. I was like, this is coming. I knew it before. Yeah, it's a great question, right? And so, the answer to that is as you're projecting out over the course of the next 5 years, right? And anything over that in any sort of business planning would be too much, right? So you do a 5-year projection. What we've done is we've done a minimal tuition increase. So my short answer would be no. I don't see this, in impacting tuition costs. It's a lever, we could pull. I mean, I'd be foolish to say up here and say, that we wouldn't do that, but our plan would that it would not at all, because of the other factors that we're looking at. And that, because I might answer some other questions here too, is that when you're looking at that, there's a lot of things that have to all connect in order for us to project this out. So we take into consideration, not making sure we're not increasing our tuition, out of the gate, because you'll lose students that way, right? So then you're not making as much income. And as much as I believe in the mission and everything, a lot of times in my office, it gets a lot down to students and numbers and income. So in our projections, we have calculated the increase, because that's what we typically do, and a lot of our other school consultants and things that you want to kind of keep on pace. But since we've started in here, we've maintained a pretty nominal raise of tuition, and I would see that trend continuing throughout this phase as well. So it's not in our plan to say, oh, we're going to raise it 12% in order to pay for this. It's more so built off of a handful of other levers. So it's a great question. Now that I have it, there's also a QR code if you were afraid to ask these questions in person. You can type them and we'll answer them later as well. But we welcome the questions in person. So anyone else? Yes. Also in the budget will be another microphone.
My name is Angela Wessels. I am a student in 4K, so this is very relevant for what he will need in however many years to come. I'm wondering if some of the graphics and numbers and things like that will be shared in some way with the larger community. Obviously, there's not a ton of people here tonight, and if we're having an association meeting on it, how you get the info out so everyone can look at it beforehand.
I'll hand that to either Anne or Rudy, but I'll answer it because I got the mic. Yes, so as we're working through this, there will be, by kind of our constitution definitely states we have to hand out an agenda prior to the meeting with the supporting documents as well to that, so that at the very least would be 2 weeks prior to the association meeting. I anticipate us, after these listening sessions as well, creating probably a greater package, because we wanted to also do like an FAQ and say, hey, if you didn't make the listening sessions, here's what the questions that were asked, and so on and so forth. So part of tonight and next Tuesday is helping us develop that packet with all of this kind of wrapped up in more of a printable handout information to be provided to the association. Sorry, I don't know if you guys, okay. I'm 2 for 2. Other questions?
I don't think I need my
I didn't think so, Glenn.
question. Is there any debt at this point? And if so, how much?
Yeah, so we currently have
Repeat the question.
oh yeah, sorry. So Glenn asked if there was any current debt, and if so, how much? So we currently have 3.8 million in debt right now, and that is from the initial project, which is at a very, very competitive interest rate as well right now, and that would probably be at the start of this project. We would anticipate that to be closer to 3 with our plans to reduce that. And as the finance team is looking at where to put different surpluses in fundraising, we definitely are taking into consider the value of our dollar towards this interest rate, or if we needed to do a new one going forward as well. And on that 3.8, keep in mind that first phase, when you saw the first phase 1 and phase 2, you saw the costs. That's brick and mortar cost, right? So, you know, in our first phase of fundraising, the total project was, when all is said and done, closer to 11 million, right? So it's easy to say 6.5 in a building, but the building's not the desks inside. The building, you know, is not this lovely thing here as well, the sound. So there's a lot of ancillary costs that were included in that that we, you know, covered as well throughout that fundraising. So that larger project cost was greater than I think we communicate sometimes. It's a good question. Other questions? I did not. You have a question? But sure.
I don't really have a question, but just to add on to that, if you look back at the original slides that we shared, we were trumpeting very proudly that we retired $750,000 of debt. It's important, at least in my mind, to differentiate operational debt versus investment in a facility. So obviously, they're both debt, money we owe on things, but one is from your outliving your means in your budget each year, and we were running in the red literally every year, and that accumulated $750,000 of debt, which is why that's so hard to recover, and why we had to work so hard to retire that. So just pointing out the difference between operational debt. You know, we talked today in terms of surpluses, which is a new thing in our school's history, and we are a nonprofit, so we're actually not really in the market of turning a profit. So that's what factors into all the finances there. But I just wanted to point out the difference between the 3.8 that we have, which is not that's off of a previous building project. Might be akin, maybe this is helps me anyway, in a simple financial mind. Operational debt, you might compare it to, say, credit card debt. It's just accumulating, and you're maybe outliving your means. And the 3.8 million might be akin to a mortgage on a house, where you've put X% down and have a budget to pay that off over time. And this last year, I believe we paid off $750,000 with a $500,000 balloon payment, and then just our regular mortgage on the existing debt. And so anyway, I found that interesting that it's very difficult to retire $750,000 of operating debt. It was sort of ho-hum and a shoulder shrug to pay off that exact same amount in the mortgage, if that makes sense. So hopefully that adds a little bit of clarity to some of those slides. Happy to take other questions.
is the anticipated start of a project in 2025, or is it next year?
I can answer that. Our goal would be to break ground in the spring of 2024 so that our students could be in the new space by the fall of 2025.
And then, is the high interest rate time we're in, does that factor in on some of the planning?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak loud with Andrew. You know, it definitely does, Dr. Bruce, jokingly, about 5 years ago, a member of our steering committee said, "Oh, interest rates are 2. Let's take out $40 million." And maybe he was right. But it definitely does play into it. And what we're projecting, so in our risk models, we have about a 7.5 interest rate on that. If I knew what the Fed was going to do, I probably could pay for this myself. But I think what you'll see is the Fed slowly raising interest rates over the course of the rest of the calendar year. And then I think they're going to sit for 2024 because of the election. So I think we'll see a high interest rate. But depending on where our fundraising rate is at, our interest rate, and if we do have to go the construction loan route, it's not like if we approve this, it starts today, right? So we have some lead time on it, and close to probably 18-month construction loan. So we have taken into effect that it's not going to be a 3.125%, and it'll be a higher interest rate. It's a little tough to see what that rate would be, but I feel confident with our projections, what we have. That's a great question. Yes.
I'm curious about, if it sounded like maybe it would take about a year and a half to remodel. How would it affect the kids that are currently at the school and the phase of renovating particular spaces at the same time?
Yeah, I'll speak briefly to it, but hand it over to Eric. We've been, because I asked that same question when we started these spaces, and our contractor, Joseph Schmidt, really, they work with schools quite well, but I'll let Eric speak to it a little better.
The easiest way to explain it is if we start in spring of 2024, we'll have 2 summers that we can do the interior work to remodel. So with Joe Schmidt, they're really good to work with. They'll end up trying to schedule when they redo the cafeteria, the band rooms, that area there. They'll try and do all of that work during summers. So the least interruption possible.
Which does mean some of the benefits would happen prior to 2025, right? You would see as soon as 2024 for some of those spaces, depending on what they can get done and so on and so forth.
Any more questions? Last call. So on your little handout here, sheboyganchristian.com/questions, or if you like scanning stuff, you can scan that on your smartphone and it'll go. That brings you to either one will bring you to the same survey. And this is just a way to get both feedback and other questions. Some of us don't like talking on a microphone in front of people, so we maybe want to ask questions in more private contexts. Others of us have questions or don't have questions now, and you're going to go home and say, nuts, I wish I had asked thing X, Y, or Z, and so we don't want the conversation to end here. Forget whose question was, maybe Angela's, about getting word out in the community. You can now be ambassadors to help us get word out in the community. We have another listening session or information session October 3rd. So that's during the day, so we wanted to have one during the night and one during the day to make ourselves available to answer any questions for people. When you complete anything on that survey, it's going to go to our administration and our board of trustees. So that's where the information will go. You can also go just good old fashioned, just call or show up in the office someday, and we're trying to be as approachable as possible, but I want to answer every question that you think you might need prior to the vote of affirmation on November 9th. Anything else, Steve? All right. Yeah, with that, here's Ann.
Let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, you are beyond words. We are so thankful for who you are and that you show your sovereignty to us. Over 125 years, you have led us and planned and shown us the way. We thank you, Lord, for the future of this school. We don't know it yet, but you do. And we just ask, Lord, for your provision, for your plan to be revealed to us. We ask for your guidance, your wisdom, and your discernment. Lord, as we go out now, we just pray that you will bless each and every one here. Please keep them safe. And Lord, all honor and glory to you. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you for joining us, and have a good night.